Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. With more than 30 weekly podcasts, HRN has something for every food lover. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome to Spill and Dish, a new podcast from the Specialty Food Association. Founded in 1952, SFA is the leading trade association and source of information about the $175 billion specialty food industry. We champion the food producers, retailers, and other buyers who make up the specialty food world. Each episode, we want to share the stories behind the products made and sold by our members who are helping shape the future of food. You can listen and discover the inspiration, recipe, craft, culture, ingredients, and production methods that help answer the question, what makes specialty food special? I'm today's host, Julie Gallagher, Content Director at SFA. We're excited to bring you today's episode and so happy to be working with Heritage Radio Network, a nonprofit podcast network covering the world of food, drink, and agriculture, and expanding the way eaters think about food. Today's guest is Caroline Cotto, co-founder and chief operating officer of Renewal Mill, an upcycled food company that works with byproducts from plant-based milk, usually soybean pulp, oat pulp, and almond pulp, that's dried and milled to produce premium, high-fiber, gluten-free flours that are both sold as part of its product portfolio and used to create Renewal Mill baking mixes. Caroline has been named to lists such as Forbes' 30 Under 30 list and the Specialty Food Association's 12 Under 35 list of breakout talent to watch. Caroline, the upcycled food market is really interesting to me since it seems to hold a lot of untapped potential. When were you first introduced to the world of upcycling?
Thanks so much, Julie. So we like to say that upcycling is not really a new concept. Your grandma was probably upcycling if, people who grew up in a time when there was a little bit more scarcity and just needed to use everything that they purchased. So every chef or anyone in their kitchen who's being a little bit scrappy and using every odd and end, they're essentially upcycling. But I think the term really started to come to the forefront when people started to learn about the massive food waste problem that we have here in the US and also globally. And so the NRDC, about almost 10 years ago now, released a report that said about 40% of food in the US is going to waste. And that's really when this first crossed my radar and a bunch of other people in the industry, that not only was so much waste happening, but that this waste was having a massive impact on climate change.
Wow. Yeah. As the mother of 13 children, my grandmother was definitely upcycling.
100%.
So how did the idea for Renewal Mill come to be?
Yeah, so it actually came out of my co-founder's firsthand experience with food waste. So her name is Claire. She owned Boston's first organic juice company. And she,
Okay.
had taken a lot of care to source locally grown produce that she was bringing into her juicing business to make these premium juices out of. And at the end of every day, she was left with a massive pile of fruit and vegetable pulp that she couldn't use, which not only hurt from an economic perspective because she was throwing out, like 60% of the fruit and vegetable, but also from an environmental perspective because she was, she tried to use it in things like muffins or crackers, but there was just too much of it. And so she was having to put it right into the bin. And so the idea for Renewal Mill came when she had a fortuitous conversation with the owner of a large tofu company who essentially said, you think you're making a lot of pulp in your, tiny one-off juicing business. I'm making tons and tons of pulp every week at my facility when I essentially juice soybeans to make soy milk, which is the first step of making tofu.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So how did you meet her?
So I was working for a food tech accelerator, so helping incubate food businesses all along the supply chain. And Claire had the idea for Renewal Mill and was coming to the accelerator. And we immediately kind of bonded over this shared passion of reducing food waste. And also, I came from a nutrition background. And what's happening in our food system is that we're actually processing most of the nutrition out of our food. A lot of the fiber and protein is what gets left behind as byproducts. And so we thought, okay, there has to be a better way to keep all of this valuable nutrition in the supply chain. And so let's get our creative thinking caps on how to do that. And Renewal Mill was born.
Okay. And then, so tell me about the products that Renewal Mill makes and how did you decide on these particular products?
Yeah, so our flagship ingredient is called Okara flour, and it's the actual traditional name for the pulp left over when you make soy milk. So essentially, we dehydrate that pulp and then mill it into a flour. It's very neutral in flavor and color. It has a very you can mix it with traditional flour and you won't really notice a taste difference, but it's packed with fiber. And so we started with that and then realized that there was also all of these pulps coming from other byproduct or other plant-based milk streams. So our second ingredient is an oat milk flour made from the pulp left over from making oat milk. And that is, almost 50% protein. So really nutritious. Both of these are gluten-free. But then those just selling the flours on their own, it still requires the consumer to do quite a bit of work and baking in their own kitchen. So we wanted to make it even easier for folks to engage with upcycled ingredients. And that's why we released our baking mix line, which is just to add oil and water. So all of them feature one of our hero upcycled ingredients, but are super easy to use. And then even easier, we also have launched 2 SKUs of ready-to-eat cookies featuring these ingredients. So people can engage with upcycled on the go.
Are those the products that you partnered with? I think Miyoko's Creamery partnered with on maybe one of the cookies?
Yeah, those are the ones. So for those unfamiliar, Miyoko's Creamery is a vegan butter company also based here in Northern California. And they had some leftover butter at the end of their production runs in their machines that was otherwise going to go to waste. So we said, we'll take it and combine it with our Okara flour to create vegan, gluten-free, ready-to-eat cookies. So it's like the fat source in our cookie, which lends a really beautiful flavor and a really exciting story about partnering with another woman-owned brand that's really trying to do better for the planet through plant-based food.
And so how did you meet up with Miyoko? I mean, how did that relationship come to be?
So yeah, Miyoko's, like I said, is really focused on sort of animal welfare, veganism, and they had hired a sustainability manager. And that's actually how we got connected is I was friends with their sustainability manager. She was taking a holistic look at their entire supply chain, their entire production, and saying, we have this side stream or, this leftover butter that's, really rich and nutrient dense and beautiful flavor that's kind of doesn't have a home right now. Like, would you be interested in helping us out? And we jumped at the chance.
Yeah. So when you started this company, did you envision that you would partner with established brands in such a way?
Yeah, so collaboration is key to our brand identity. Just kind of like that story I told you of how we got off the ground, it's essential for us to work with other companies because we're literally taking their byproducts. So we are a partner that comes in and is a complete off-take solution for them so that they don't have to waste, and we can kind of help be that partner. Our equipment is sometimes literally inside of their factories to prevent any sort of food safety challenges. So, yeah, we've been extremely collaborative since the get-go. Of late, in the last few years, we've really doubled down on partnerships for our branded products because it's a great way to get the word out there about upcycled food by introducing other companies' audiences to the concept of upcycling. And vice versa, they get introduced to upcycling, and then we're able to introduce their mission to our audience. So in Miyoko's case, that's really hitting home on the veganism and animal welfare. But we partner with a lot of women-owned brands, especially and really focus on people kind of doing products across the aisles of the grocery store. So we partner with Pulp Pantry, which is a grain-free chip company. They use our Okara flour in their chips. We're partnered with Seconds Crackers, which uses our oat milk flour in their gluten-free crackers. We partner with Square Baby, which is a Bay Area-based baby food company that actually uses our Okara flour as a way to do early allergen introduction of soy allergens to babies through their food. And we've also partnered with like local ice cream brands to do inclusions. So like Humphrey Slocum and also Salt and Straw ice cream.
Great. And tell me about, so you touched a little bit on the education piece. Is there room on packaging to educate the consumer a little bit about what an upcycled product is if they've never been introduced to the concept?
Yeah, so we definitely do that on our pack as well. It's really great because we helped start the Upcycled Food Association a few years ago to kind of bring everybody who's doing upcycling into the same room and say, let's really unify our language around this concept to help consumers understand what it means. And what came out of that was the first of its kind upcycled certification for upcycled food. So this is a special mark that you can put on your pack that really helps consumers understand that when I purchase upcycled food, I'm helping fight food waste, which is helping fight climate change. And so we put that mark on all of our products. They've all been upcycled certified, which is great, and do a lot of education around what that symbol means. And then also try to give folks like a forest for the trees view of saying, when you purchase upcycled, you're also helping prevent the wastage of all the resources that went into growing that food. So we can calculate like how much water is saved and how much carbon is prevented from being emitted and how much food waste you're diverting from landfill by purchasing this product.
Interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the logistics of sourcing these byproducts for your own products? How does it work?
Yeah, so like I said, it really comes down to partnerships and finding the right partner producers who have these byproduct streams. Byproducts are a huge headache for manufacturers. So often they have full-time employees dedicated to dealing with them. In the case of the byproducts we work with, they start spoiling really quickly. So usually within the first 4 hours because they're about 80% water. And so they also take up quite a bit of space. So our first factory partner actually was using almost a quarter of their factory floor space to house wet byproduct before disposal. And so it's a huge benefit for them to work with us because we're able to say, you don't have to figure out how to truck this away anymore. We'll take it off your hands. And by dehydrating it, we're able to reduce the space and deal with any food safety issues. So we, started with Okara because it had such a nutrient density of fiber and protein, and also that neutral color and flavor. So it doesn't really have to be masked when you're using it in different products. And it also was already an FDA recognized ingredient and had a storied history in countries like Japan. And so you can make okara when you make soy milk or when you make tofu. So those are kind of the first partners that we've gone after. And then when we found out about the oat pulp, there was so much parity with okara that was kind of a natural next step to pursue. And also both tofu and oat milk are growing categories in the grocery store, which means that as the demand for those products grows, so too does the amount of byproduct as more is being produced, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So is there any sort of cost associated with getting these byproducts? You know, are you able to obtain them for free, or do these companies maybe even pay you to take these byproducts off their hands?
It's a good question, and it's a common misconception around upcycled food. So there is actually, cost that goes into making these products food safe and shelf stable and bringing them to market as a fully commercialized ingredient. And so, it's, in an ideal world, it'd be like, yeah, it's free and, we're just capturing that lost value, but it's not that simple of a story. So we don't pay for the raw material, but we do pay for the processing of it.
Okay.
And we're happy to support our partners in that way and help it be a win-win for everyone. So they're reclaiming some lost economic value and then also getting access to this environmental story as well.
Right. So where are these upcycled foods sort of merchandised in the supermarket? Are they sort of integrated with their conventional counterparts? And do you envision that someday maybe they'll have segregated upcycled sets if they don't already?
Yeah, so for the most part, they are integrated with their conventional partners. So we sell our baking mixes in the baking aisle. That's where we expect people to look for them. So I think that's great. And then it really makes it a shelf, like a on-shelf choice for a consumer. Like I can choose Betty Crocker or I can choose Renewal Mill. And these are all the reasons I would choose Renewal Mill. It's, vegan, gluten-free, better for you, better for the planet alternative. But there are some really innovative retailers doing some interesting things around marketing upcycled foods together. So Whole Foods has done a dedicated end cap that showed basically had a header that said, "Let's fight food waste together." And then they merchandised like 5 or 6 upcycled products on that end cap, which is really cool. We're also putting point of sale marketing materials through the Upcycled Food Association to help show people which products in each aisle are upcycled. So shelf talkers or shelf strips that make that really clear. And then like other retailers online as well are adding dedicated search filters. So people like Thrive Market or Mabel, which is kind of a smaller B2B retailer, but you can search specifically for upcycled products on those sites just to make it a little bit easier.
That's great. And I imagine that your products probably did well during the pandemic as so many Americans took on baking as a hobby. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So before the pandemic, we were actually doing quite a bit of our sales through food service as snacks to offices in the Bay Area. And as you can imagine with the pandemic, that channel completely closed overnight. So we had already been planning to launch our baking mix line, but it kind of coincided with COVID. And I don't know if you remember back to 2020, but the shelves in the baking aisle were fairly bare at that time because people were home making banana bread and really re-engaging with baking for the first time in a long time. So it was a great opportunity for us to kind of slide in and get on shelf when there weren't other options available and for people to try us out. And we've kind of seen that sustain itself. Like, I think a lot of people were using baking as therapy. So we've definitely done a lot of marketing around like stress baking, and our baking mixes are kind of like one bowl, one pan. So it's a way to make something homemade, but not to make your kitchen a whole mess.
I love that. And what advice would you give a food maker who's looking to source byproducts to use as ingredients in their products, but doesn't really know where to get started?
Yeah, there are a lot of great resources. Definitely can reach out to the Upcycled Food Association. They have a website, which is upcycledfood.org, where you can search certified upcycled products and ingredients directly on the website. There's also an ingredient platform called Shelf Life that's doing a great job of bringing upcycled ingredients to the forefront. So I think they have a search filter on their website where you can search for upcycled ingredients. And then, Renewal Mill is more than happy to help anyone if you're interested in using flour-based products, or if you come across a byproduct stream in your own production or supply chain, and you're looking for advice on how to commercialize that. Definitely feel free to reach out to me or anyone at the Upcycled Food Association. We'd love to help talk you through that.
That's so generous of you. What would you say is next for Renewal Mill?
Well, we have a lot on our plate right now, so we're going to continue. We just launched nationally at Whole Foods with our baking mix line and flours this past summer. So baking season is officially upon us. So we're definitely doubling down on sampling our products and getting people excited about baking this holiday season. And then in the new year, we're going to be adding some new upcycled ingredients to our portfolio. So we're excited about those. They'll continue to be gluten-free and nutrient-dense, but some different byproduct streams that we're working with. And then we will continue to seek out new partnerships. So we have a new partner baking mix launching at the end of November. We're excited to share more about that. With another female-owned company from the Bay Area. And then we'll be looking for new partners for the upcoming months in 2023.
Great. Congratulations on the deal with Whole Foods.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a definitely a fun adventure to get products out into the mainstream where we haven't had distribution before in the natural specialty channel, and you can't really ask for a better partner than Whole Foods for that.
Right. So we're almost out of time, but before we wrap up, we'd like you to participate in our Take 5 segment where we pose 5 questions to our guest. But first, let's pause for a break.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new series on Heritage Radio Network called The Culinary Call Sheet, where we give a peek into the back kitchen of culinary media. I'm your host, April Jones.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Bresnitz. Part of why we started this show was to offer an unofficial mentorship for anyone who is interested in learning about all aspects of food and video, whether that's TV, social media, online, or just something you want to do for fun.
Absolutely. What was once niche or a little silly, as I'm sure you remember, Darren, when we started out,
yes, ma'am,
has now become such a massive playing field for so many creatives using food as the medium.
It's something that has driven us professionally and personally for so many years. What excites me the most about this show is that we're going to sit down with some of the industry leaders to hear how they made it and what drew them into this industry.
With 20 years in the culinary production game ourselves, we're hoping we can give, through these conversations, an insider's view into personal stories from the field, as well as an in-depth behind-the-scenes look into some of the most popular food programming in today's evolving culinary media landscape.
We'll be covering everything from how to style your food, to how to license IP, to developing your own ideas, and some tips from the masters of how to host your own show.
Yeah, it's a little bit of conversation, how to, and how do you do the things that you do in culinary media, which I'm so excited about. I love so many of the guests that are coming on this season. We have talent from Food Network, from Vice Media, Eater, Refinery 29.
We've met some of the best people in the world, both in front of and behind the camera. And we're bringing them all together to share their stories, their delicious adventure, and their unique journey into this crazy world.
So to be the first to hear our episodes when they launch this fall, go to wherever podcasts are streaming and hit subscribe, and make sure to give us a follow at the Culinary Call Sheet on Instagram.
Okay, Caroline, here are your 5 questions for our final segment, Take 5. What's your favorite thing about the specialty food industry?
Definitely the people. I feel like people who work in food are some of the best people in the world, and I love people who love food. So it's fun to work with them every day.
And what do you like most about being a Specialty Food Association member?
One of my favorite features is the Specialty Food Association allows companies to post press releases. It's been a really great way for us to get our brand out there and raise awareness about what we're doing on a limited budget. So we definitely take advantage of that, as well as love going to all of the SFA trade shows.
And if you weren't running a business, what would you be doing?
Probably stand-up comedy. It's my side passion. So if I wasn't in a food business, I might be doing that.
Oh, wow, you're brave. What's the one piece of advice you'd give a new food business?
It's a great question. I think a lot of people have ideas for food businesses, but kind of stop themselves from starting it because they're like, there's so many barriers to entry. I don't know anything about grocery retail. I don't know how to get my product produced. I think kind of going back to my first answer, the food community, especially food founders, are extremely generous of time and willing to share their know-how. So my advice is just get out there. There's a bunch of Slack channels and groups like SFA where you can learn from other folks. So I would say jump in and if you have an idea, start producing your product. Even if you're, hand stamping bags and hand filling them like we were in our early days, it's great just to get your product out into the market and get some feedback and then learn from others.
And how do you define specialty food?
I think specialty food is any kind of food that makes you feel something. For us, we're really trying to inspire hope with our products, especially around the climate discussion, which can be very bleak. And so, saying you can fight climate change with us and it can be delicious and fun and easy is, how I would define specialty food. But I think that goes for worldwide. Anytime you have a unique experience with food, I think that's a really special moment.
That's a great answer. A big thank you to Caroline Cotto for joining us today. You can find out more about this show at specialtyfood.com and heritageradionetwork.org. And remember to follow wherever you get your podcasts. Come back often to get to know the people who are shaping the future of food. Special thanks to Caroline and to Heritage Radio Network, the world's pioneer food radio station. This is Spill and Dish, a Specialty Food Association podcast.
Spill and Dish is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.